first question is, you both co-wrote and co-directed the movie together. So how did you really come together to collaborate on the film overall?
Do you want me to take that one, Mariko? Or
Sure, you can do it first.
um, well, I had actually written a draft of the script and made a short film out of it, and Mariko came the short. And when she read that early draft, it just went from there. She had a lot of ideas on the script that I thought were super exciting, and then it kind of spiraled. Where originally we didn't know what was going to happen. We just knew we wanted to make a movie, and then the more we got into it, the more we realized, oh, let's rewrite this. Let's add these dimensions to these characters. Let's pump up this climax, and then next thing you know, we were, rewriting and then directing together, and so it just took off very organically, I would say.
I agree with that.
And I was going to actually ask you both, what was the process of actually coming together to actually write the film together? And did you do any particular research for the story once you actually began working on the script together?
Yeah, there was a lot of research.
We both lived through the 90s, for one.
Yeah, so we lived it. But then there were some, aspects. There were certainly a number of historic events that we wanted to lace into the storyline because they had played, a large role in kind of shaping our world views. So
yeah, we actually at one point we had a timeline of iconic events in the 90s, which was kind of fun. We decided we didn't want to play things perfectly chronologically because the character's so mixed up and our memories of the 90s are so mashed up. Looking back on it all, we didn't feel like the best way to show the character was to do it perfectly chronologically. But in doing the research, we did have like all the dates, OJ, trial, verdict, Tupac's death, like other Jordan's dad dies, all these like classic iconic 90s events on a timeline at one point.
The Million Man March.
The Million Man March.
And once you actually got on the set and began directing the movie, what was that process like of actually splitting like the duties that you were both to do once you were actually began filming?
I found it to be pretty simple. I mean, between Dave and I, we had done so much work prior to getting on set together. We had collaborated so closely that it was almost like we were of one mind by that time. We really were on the same page. We wanted what was best for the movie, and Dave mentioned yesterday when we were talking that the movie also kind of takes on its own. It has its own needs and its own life, and so then it was almost at a certain point we kind of surrendered to the movie itself.
And the movie is the first feature film that you both directed. So what was that experience like overall? And did you both take maybe any lessons while you were shooting that maybe you'll apply to your next feature that you're going to direct?
Absolutely. It's such a learning process. I mean, it was a thrill. We were so excited to even have the opportunity to make this movie, and we learned a great deal that we'll take on to the next movie. So yeah, we learned a lot. We learned about how we aesthetically how we want to shoot our next movie. We learned about things that we might have maybe we should have taken a little more photos along the way just for memories and stills and things like that. But no, it was really exciting learning process.
Yeah, it was super exciting, and I will just say a huge learning experience. I feel it was just in all ways just I don't know, like even understanding everyone's perspective on the crew and throughout the whole community. I mean, when you're shooting a film in a small town, it's almost like you're taking over the town. So just learning how to appreciate that and how to show everyone that you're appreciating it is like a bit of a learning experience. So, I mean, it was awesome, and everyone was so wonderful along the way, but I do feel even the next time I'll at least personally have a better grasp on it all.
Yeah.
And in the film, Tyler Rose plays the main character. So, what was the casting process like for him? And why did you ultimately decide to cast him in the role?
Well, we cast him actually it was very modern, from a YouTube audition that he did for us. He sent in to our casting director, Ann Davison, a YouTube link to his reading of a couple scenes, and he was amazing. I mean, we saw a lot of great actors, young actors in New York, and we saw a lot of tapes as well. But I think we both, the moment we saw his tape, we knew that this kid had it, and then we did a Skype session with him, and we really liked. It's funny because he was, I think, 23 when he filmed it, and there are younger kids in our cast, but for some reason he really had that innocence that Jolie needs to have, because the character does such horrible things throughout, but he does it with this kind of naivety that it was really important that we cast somebody who had that, and he really did. So, anything to...
Yeah, I still remember watching the first private YouTube video, and I do remember thinking to myself, wow, this kid really gets it, I mean, he could do it in the sense, like, the lines that he has to say are quite, degrading to other people, right? But he means them in this very genuine way. Like, he'll be gloating and accidentally insulting his best friend at the same time, And so to pull that off and to not seem like a jerk to the audience is difficult. Like, a lot of auditions right away, you would see, oh, if we made the movie with this guy, everyone would hate him, Whereas with Tyler, he could balance the line, If, yes, he was insulting his friend, and that's funny, but also we understand the naivete that he's bringing to the character, and a lot of that was in between the lines. I mean, you could really see the wheels spinning in his head, like, as he was pausing between lines, and that was, to me right away, that was like, oh, okay, that's awesome. This is it, And I think Mariko was on the exact same page.
Yeah, I was.
And were you able to have any rehearsal period with Tyler and the rest of the cast before you actually began filming the movie?
I wish.
I think we had like 3 days. We had a couple of days, didn't we?
No.
When they were doing costumes, or maybe it was just one day.
We had one day that everybody arrived, and it was more like a day that we kind of had like a meal with them and fit them for their costumes, like a padded day before the first day of shooting. But I mean, we made the movie in a year, so it was kind of back to back. It was like the moment we were done casting, we were filming, it felt. And Tyler had flown in actually directly from his mom, I think, had a wedding. I think his mom got married, and so he came directly from the wedding. We actually like rescheduled our shoot days so that we could use Tyler, because we were planning on starting, I think, a week before, and then we rescheduled. But it worked out all for the best, actually. And there was really no rehearsal time. He got the...
And that's...
I think that's probably typical of movie.
Yeah, I think it's pretty, at least, from what I've read with Todd Solondz or, working with Barry Levinson on The Bay, it was no rehearsals, which I think there's one advantage to that, which is that all the lines feel very fresh, I always feel like a scene can peak, and then once it peaks, it's only going to go downhill for the most part, So it's kind of like you want to make sure you get that peak on camera, which is a problem in comedy in one camera shoots because sometimes the person throwing the lines off camera, they can peek. So you're always kind of like making sure that characters offline don't go too far into it. I mean, you want them to help the on-screen actor, but anyway, it can be a little tricky. And then you don't want to peek too much in the wide shot. That's why sometimes we cut the wides early because we know we're only going to be in the wide to get into the scene or to get out of it or something like that. And we don't necessarily want to run all the lines to the max, So it was a little bit of, okay, there's no rehearsal hardly, but that to me was kind of fine.
And besides writing and directing the movie, you both also produced the film as well. So did working as producers on the movie maybe influence your decisions on how to direct the movie and make it overall?
I think it definitely did. Yeah. I mean, that's how I think that producing it together is why when we got on set, we were so on the same page because we had gone over every single decision together prior. So it was almost all.
And producing is hugely creative. You're deciding where the resources are going to go and where you're going to have the time to put your energy based on a lot of other factors. So Mariko and I went to like every school, scouting them together, even greater big decisions like between are we going to shoot in Jersey or are we going to shoot in Maryland? Like these are like the broad strokes things that really do make a huge impact. What's our shooting format? Hiring, the key crew. All of these things like are kind of both producer and director-ish decisions, and they go hand in hand. And some of our favorite directors are producer directors, like Russell, somebody like that. Always admired them. Also, at any rate, sorry if I'm rambling, but yeah, basically I think they're both hugely creative, and we did want to do them specifically both together, once things got rolling, so.
Yeah.
And the movie's going to be distributed through Kevin Smith's studio Phase 4 film. So how did that deal come about, and what was it like working with Kevin overall, distributing the movie?
Well, it was
dream come true.
Yeah, dream come true. It was so exciting that, to hear that he had even seen our movie was already such a thrill, and then that he liked it and that he wanted to distribute it. We were kind of, it was already such an honor to be included in Sundance, and then to be so lucky as to get picked up. It was, this is our first film, and it was more than we could ever hope for. So we're thrilled. And also, of course, Kevin Smith is such an inspiration to us both. Having, his first film, Clerks, went to Sundance. It was made on a shoestring, just like ours was. He really is kind of a champion of independent cinema. I think he always has been and always will be. So to have his support is just a dream come true.
Yeah, it's really it was the whole experience. Getting into Sundance, like 1 in a million, we didn't think we even had a shot, and when we just got the news, it was wild. And then from there to like, oh my God, to sell the movie, let alone who we sell it to, was huge. And then we got to actually meet Kevin Smith, and that was like another, just a trip, and he's such a sincere, wonderful guy, and like us, he loves cinema, so it's super easy to bond with him right away.
Plus, he's super funny.
He's super funny, and his movies literally were like the movies that I loved in high school. So it's just wild. Clerks, Chasing Amy, especially, as well as Clerks, and I still love his films.
Yeah.
Jack and Mira Make a Porn. It was hilarious. Red State, I thought, was amazing, and it's in a new way that we've never seen from Kevin. So it was interesting, even at a later age, for him to jump genres when he's been doing the comedy thing for so long. I don't know, the whole experience, it was just amazing. So.
Yeah.
And speaking of Sundance, I just wanted to ask you about that as well. What your initial reaction when you found out the movie was going to be playing there, and how did audiences really react to the film overall after the screenings at Sundance?
Well, it was when we got the call. Of course, we were, you know, I mean, it was. I think Dave got the call, and I maybe you want to tell her more, Dave. But I remember he was like, "Is this a prank call?" He's like googling Shari Freelo, our programmer, who called to make sure that this was legitimately a call saying that we got into Sundance, and yeah.
Yeah, I do remember right away. I was on the computer working. I forgot, like, Mariko and I were basically connected at the hip at that point because we were just working nonstop to finish. Forgot where Mariko was at that moment.
I was in Honolulu visiting my family.
Oh, right. And then, I got the call, and even while I was on the phone, I was, like, Googling this person. I was like, this is not real. But I do remember seeing that it showed up Beverly Hills on my cell phone. I was like, Beverly Hills? Like, who's this? And then I answered it. They were like, this is Sundance. Shari Freelo was calling. I was like, oh, let me see it. Shari. And I was looking up her name if it was real. And then I saw her on the website. I was like, oh, my God, this could be real. And then I was like emailing Mariko while I was talking to her. It was trippy.
And basically, I was on my way to Japan to visit family, and I had to like reschedule everything and like get back there because we realized we had to finish the movie by a very specific important date. So suddenly we were like really, it put the fire under us to get that movie done because we were in post-production at that time.
Which is so lucky too. I've worked on a lot of films and I've seen so many of them drag on. Like there's like some famous quotes. Who actually said it is hard to say, but a lot of people attribute it to Coppola, where he was like, a film is never done. It's just pretty much abandoned because the reality is you can keep working on it forever. Like how many times was the Mona Lisa repainted? It's like, yes, you can keep tweaking it. You can make 10 different movies out of the movie easily, So to have somebody immediately say, we're screening it and there's an end date, it's like a huge, wonderful, almost relief. You know what I mean? But it's kind of sad. It's like it's sad too to be leaving behind the movie, but at the same time, it's good that it's like an adult now and it's having its own life, and it's going to go on and do its own thing with value for a change. So it's like a bittersweet, the kid's going to college kind of feeling, I guess.
And then my last question.
Yes. Your final question.
Okay. I just wanted to ask. Do you both have any upcoming projects lined up? Whether directing or writing or producing. That you can discuss. And are you interested in maybe working together again on another movie in the future?
Yeah, we're writing right now another movie. It's another comedy, a dark comedy. This, in some ways, we kind of think of it as a companion piece to American Milkshake because it's another kind of rite of passage movie, but this time from the perspective of a 30-year-old door girl at a nightclub in New York.
Okay. Thank you very much for your time. I